welcome to Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd, and seated next to me we have Professor Aubrey. And when it comes to comedy, I think we grew up in a golden age in so many ways. And one way that I think you and I were able to have one of the brightest, happiest, funniest childhoods was watching Saturday Night Live during what would be considered its second golden age.
That's right.
Yes, Saturday Night Live is turning 50, and we would be remiss if we didn't take time to talk about some of our favorite sketches, because like most people, I think, we both have come to appreciate that not every season of Saturday Night Live is going to be either A, good, or B, something you relate to. Which doesn't make it bad. It's just sometimes there are going to be episodes of Saturday Night Live you're not going to like, and you move on, right?
Saturday Night Live is the same age as me. Started in 1974, as did I.
1975.
But the first episode was in 1974. Let's look it up. Let's look it up.
I guarantee you it was October 1975.
Well, we'll just see.
Damn right. October 11th, 1975. Challenge me on a TV question. That would be like me, sitting here, the Supreme Court decision wasn't true, right? You know what I'm saying. But
okay, that was funny.
Arguing about something legal, but anyway. I have a lot of great memories from Saturday Night Live. I even remember the first episode I ever watched, and it was during the unique 11th season. It was hosted by Ron Reagan. Do you remember him?
Ron Reagan, Ronald's son.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was always getting in trouble for stuff, right?
No. He was just different from his dad. For as conservative as his dad was, he was liberal. For as religious, quote unquote, as his dad was, he's a noted atheist. He's come out and said, it's my dad. I love my dad, blah, blah, blah. But I also think he gets why people, have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to him. So it's in a lot of ways, I can forgive him. You know what I mean? But because he's not an apologist like Nixon's daughters, for instance.
Right.
Type of deal. But the big thing I remember, though, from that episode was that they had a little goof on Back to the Future to where Ron Reagan somehow traveled back in time, but then screwed up the modern timeline and then came, into a house to find out that, Reagan wasn't president and all that stuff. I mean, the 11th season was not that good, even though it did have Robert Downey Jr. in the cast.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was on the cast of Saturday Night Live ever.
Yeah, him and Anthony Michael Hall. It was Lorne Michaels' first season back, and he did not pick the best cast, even though John Lovitz was in that season.
Mm-hmm.
John Lovitz was definitely the breakout star. But what we wanted to do here this week is talk about some of our favorite sketches. I mean, it's 50 years of comedy. Everybody is going to have a different choice at this point, and I think that's what the beauty of it is, because even if there are cast members that you don't like we recently watched part of the Saturday Night Live documentary about the music that's been on Saturday Night Live, but they also talk about music that's been in the sketches. And I've been open about the fact that I don't find Fred Armisen funny, but that sketch that happened where he played the father of a woman that just got married, and then he got his high school band back together, but his high school band was a hardcore punk band, and then he destroyed everything. It's that's funny. That's funny. That's the beauty of Saturday Night Live, I guess, is that even if there are times to where you don't necessarily relate to the humor, there can be something that will pop up that will just kick you in the gut and you'll start laughing.
Yeah, that's been my experience.
Yep. Well, let's do this. Let's start off with our list like we normally do. 5 is a good number. So we've each picked our 5 favorite Saturday Night Live sketches, and we're going to talk about them. One thing to remember is that a lot of times with Saturday Night Live, especially if, from the very beginning, is that once they found that a sketch was popular, they would have multiple sketches with those characters in it. So there are going to be some that we pick here that will just be necessary. It'll be us talking about the characters, not one specific sketch per se.
Right.
Yep. But how about you dive into your first choice?
Okay. My first choice is Chippendales with Patrick Swayze and
Chris Farley.
Chris Farley. I can't believe I forgot Chris Farley's name. It was just a stage fright thing. So anyway, if you remember the skit, of course, it is Patrick Swayze being a very good dancer, as he is, and very well-developed muscular features, physical features. And Chris Farley, of course, is famously not in shape.
He's what I think you would call thick.
I mean, I think that he is a fat person. And
I've always been hesitant about using that word myself.
yeah, I think there's a bit of a reclaiming going on, but also just it's a word, it has a meaning.
Yeah.
Why is it a problem to use that word if that's what you mean?
Which I think, even though we're both a little awkward here just now, I think speaks to the power of the sketch, though. Because what Chris Farley ended up doing, even though, after the fact, you hear about how this did kind of affect Chris Farley's mental health. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, that go into the arts that have been involved with Saturday Night Live that have had, mental health issues that they've dealt with that came before the show. But thanks to fame, thanks to extracurricular chemicals you may use, they can exacerbate this problem.
That show is very hard to work on because they're doing a whole thing in a week. It's just like South Park. Everybody's like, oh, they do the whole thing in a week. Well, that's only a 30-minute show.
Saturday Night Live, of course, 90 minutes, but this sketch too, it's like even though that it kind of affected him in some way, it's like he did. When he let loose, and that was just brutal honesty that you saw, and it was beautiful honesty. It's like he's up there, and like you didn't doubt for a moment that he absolutely felt he was comparable to Patrick Swayze.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what made it so funny, but on my end too, it's like while I feel bad that Chris Farley ended up being negatively affected by that, I also think it was a great positive sketch. Even though the Kevin Nealon stuff, we're Chippendales. He gave a great performance, but ultimately at the end when they were just insulting Bernie over there, it's like maybe they could have done that a little bit better. But Chris Farley's performance was just fucking awesome, fucking hilarious.
Yeah, his dance moves were top notch.
Yeah, like he was a huge fan of John Belushi. That should go without saying. And, John Belushi, a heavier set guy himself, he was famous for, doing like flips and stuff on stage, whether he was dressed as, like one of the killer bees or, whatever. So, Chris Farley ended up taking that to heart, which is why he was able to ultimately do what he did. But just, it is awesome knowing that we grew up as kids watching such a comedy genius at work. Chris Farley was amazing. Like, even some of the worst movies I've seen him in, you still get some great laughs.
I really like Chris Farley.
I do. I was on a GeoCities chat room when I found he passed.
Oh.
Yeah, I was at the library at the time. I didn't have my own internet. This is the 90s, folks.
Right? What is the internet? The information superhighway.
That's right. You go to the library for that and spend only a half hour on a computer on a GeoCities chat room. But anything else you wanted to say about Chippendales?
Nope.
All right. How about I dive in my first one?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. This one here was on the episode that Linda Hamilton from Terminator 2 hosted. And it's a sketch called Massive Head Wound Harry. I think it has to be, in my estimation, it has to be one of the funniest sketches that was ever on Saturday Night Live. But not for what was written on the script that they tried to produce. The whole idea is that it's a sitcom of a guy who has a massive head wound, but they end up going to he ends up going to a party, and in this episode it's the cocktail party, and Linda Hamilton and Kevin Nealon play a husband and wife that invite him, and he comes in, and at the end of the sketch he's lying down on a white couch, and then suddenly a dog appears, and that if you have done anything with the creative arts, whether it be theater, film, or anything like that, the two things you ultimately know you really don't want to work with are kids or animals, because you never know what they're going to do. And in this case,
they're always cuter than you.
Yes. In this case, Dana Carvey, who played Massive Head Wound Harry, had a whole wig on, but part of it was a bloody mess. But they put on some stuff that would attract the dog to lick it, but the dog got so excited that it started pulling the wig off. And then Dana Carvey, in one of the rare instances on Saturday Night Live where an ad lib happened, said, "He must smell my dog."
Yes, so good. So good.
Like it's yeah, if like that didn't happen, I'm not talking about that sketch today, but that part right there was just I died laughing when I first saw it. I died laughing when I see it now. Like Massive Head Wound Harry is easily one of the best SNL sketches that have ever happened.
Wow. I do not feel that way about it. Absolutely do not. It's fine, but it's definitely not one of the best sketches ever, let alone the best.
I didn't say the best. I said one of the best.
Yeah, I just don't think so.
All right.
Just don't think so, sir.
But hey, that's the beauty of 50 years of sketches. How about you dive into your next one?
Okay, my next one, which you can like or not like at your leisure, is Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. You familiar?
Of course.
Of course. So Mr. Robinson lives in a New York neighborhood, and it's a little rough. He, gets into problems a lot with his landlord.
But the beauty of that sketch has always been that it is also a love letter to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, because it's a spoof of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but it just takes place in like you said, a New York City apartment building, and it's Eddie Murphy as Mr. Robinson. Just you could tell he was a true fan. And then also, Fred Rogers actually met Eddie Murphy, and they ended up taking some pictures together. I mean, my understanding was that Fred Rogers wasn't necessarily excited about the sketch, but he understood it came from a place of love. So good on Mr. Rogers there, but Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, just a classic sketch. And that was one thing that I did catch when Eddie Murphy actually came back and hosted the show a few years back, that he brought back Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood.
Cool. In 2019-ish. Yeah. Okay, so why do I like this skit? Because at the time I saw it, I was watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood almost every day. Because this is 1981 when he makes his first appearance. So I was 5, 6, 7. Not 5, 7. Go the other way. So I was 7. So I was still watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, I think. And so I could really relate to it. And then it was just hilarious, the stuff he would get up to. Like, he was always getting into trouble, getting evicted from his place, and getting in trouble with the cops for various petty crimes.
The one we watched before we started recording was one where he stole a bag of groceries. And talked about the groceries, and like, do you kids, you go drink, you want part of the you want part of the milk food group, you want part of the frozen food group. Started talking about them. And then his landlord knocked on the door, and he invited everybody. Why don't you come up and we'll talk to the landlord? And he goes, "What you want?"
I remember that one for sure.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy. absolute genius. While it would be nice to see him on the stand-up stage again, there's a part of me that kind of also wishes he doesn't do it, just in case that if he did, it ended up being bad. I don't want his reputation sullied,
Mm-hmm.
But, oh man, a lot of stuff he did on Saturday Night Live was amazing. And spoilers, we're probably talking about him again at least one more time.
Oh, I'm sure we will. Well, can I just take a moment and share the greatest poem of all time?
Go ahead.
Kill My Landlord.
All right.
Ready? Dark and lonely on the summer night. Kill my landlord. Kill my landlord. Watchdog barking. Do he bite? Kill my landlord. Kill my landlord. Slip in his window. Break his neck. Then his house I start to wreck. Got no reason. What the heck? Kill my landlord. Kill my landlord. Cill my landlord.
All right.
There you go.
All right. How about I go on my next one?
Yes.
In the late 90s, on ABC for 6 episodes, The Dana Carvey Show was on. Do you remember that?
I don't think I ever watched it. I think I watched a documentary about it.
Yeah, not many people did. I watched a couple episodes myself and laughed and enjoyed it, which should have probably clued me in that it was not going to be popular with people. But the head writer of the show was a guy by the name of Robert Schmeigel, who, as you know, as I've told you before, is the creator of Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. And there was one sketch on the Dana Carvey show that he loved that, when Lorne Michaels invited him back to write for Saturday Night Live, he actually brought it back. It was TV Funhouse, the cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I absolutely loved was the Ambiguously Gay Duo with Ace and Gary.
Oh, yeah, Ace and Gary. I remember this very, very well. This was when I was like in middle school or high school, I'd say.
That has to be like 95, 96-ish.
Okay, yeah. I was in high school about to graduate. No, I was in college, about to graduate from college.
Yeah. Well, probably early years of college because I graduated in 95.
Right.
Yeah. But, the Ambiguously Gay Duo is essentially a spoof of late 70s, early 80s superheroes cartoons on Saturday mornings. I mean, the theme song, the Ambiguously Gay Duo, the Ambiguously Gay Duo. Hilarious. Ace is played by Stephen Colbert. Gary is played by Steve Carell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
nice.
Yeah, they were supposed to. I mean, they both auditioned for Saturday Night Live and never got it as official cast members. But I loved these cartoons. Anything TV Funhouse related, it's because TV Funhouse was also started showing during the time to where, like, I believe Will Ferrell first joined the cast.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of it was just me going, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. But TV Funhouse, I loved it. Do you remember the Ambiguously Gay Duo?
Of course I do. Yes, I remember it very well. I thought it was hilarious. I would sing the song to myself. I remember all my friends thought it was funny. And we would, call each other the Ambiguously Gay Duo all the time.
Ah.
So, it was really fun. It was a really fun skit that I actually experienced in my real life.
I am glad to hear that. Robert Schmeigel is a funny, funny guy. Like I said, I love singing a couple of his Triumph the Insult Comic Dog songs at work.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cats Are Cunts. Great song.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that one.
Benji's queer.
Maybe.
Benji's queer. Benji's gay. He sees 2 balls and he barks, hooray!
I know these things because you have shown them to me.
Yeah.
Not because I would ever have seen something like that in the wild.
Imagine that. Anyway, how about you dive into your next SNL sketch, your favorite?
Okay. Number 3 is James Brown's Celebrity Hot Tub Party. Now, this is another Eddie Murphy skit where he is playing James Brown, and he's got a whole band. and he's coming out, and he's got a robe on, he dances around, takes the robe off, gets in the hot tub, and the song is basically about a hot tub and how a hot tub's really hot and it makes him sweat.
Want to get in the hot tub? It's gonna make me sweat.
No, I'm gonna get in the hot tub.
Eddie Murphy in there's a 4-part Saturday Night Live documentary that's now on Peacock, and Eddie Murphy's interviewed and actually talks about that particular sketch. He said it was written by 2 of his writing friends that had ended up writing some of his movies. Barry Blaustein being one of them. Barry Blaustein was actually the guy who directed and narrated the professional wrestling documentary Beyond the Mat.
Oh.
So there was that, but, Eddie Murphy was talking about how, he never did drugs, and he didn't, even to this day. But he talked about how Blaustein and the other guy were, like, smoking weed, and were like, hey, man, what'd be funny? James Brown in a hot tub. And that's how it came about, and Eddie Murphy at first was like, that's not funny. I'm not going to do it. But then ultimately was convinced to do it, and it became one of his most well-known sketches on Saturday Night Live.
Yes, an absolute classic. An absolute classic.
And a great homage to James Brown music as well. I mean, over the past few years, I've dug a little deeper into James Brown's catalog, and, like, spot on.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that Eddie loves
James Brown.
Hey! Has to love James Brown, right? So.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Fools. Only fools and horses.
I know. Shall I go on to my next choice?
Yes, please.
This is another classic Chris Farley character that he used in numerous sketches throughout his time in Saturday Night Live. But it's one Matt Foley, who's a motivational speaker, and he lives in a van down by the river.
Yes, he does.
The first sketch in question, we actually rewatched it before we recorded here. It was the episode that Christina Applegate from Married with Children guest starred on and was the host for that particular episode. And the parents, played by Phil Hartman and Jan Hooks, hired Matt Foley to talk to their kids, played by David Spade and Christine Applegate, because the maid found weed in one of their bedrooms. And Matt, once Chris Farley enters, like, David Spade can't stop laughing. I mean, he's, like, covering his mouth and everything, but you can tell, like, he's lost it. Christina Applegate does better, but you can tell there's points where she's, like, lowering her head as much as she can. I don't even know how she kept it together when she had to do her line talking about, I want to live in a van down by the river. I mean, I would have still been laughing, but, how he ended the sketch too, there's a part to where he says, there's you, there's Matt, there's you, and there's Matt. And then he jumps on a coffee table and it breaks. None of the other actors on that set knew that that was going to happen.
What?
Yes. I mean, Chris Farley, I believe, talked about it with, like, Lorne Michaels. So it's not like it was improvised or anything like that. But they didn't know he was going to jump through the table like that and have it break. So their reactions were genuine. But just... again, Chris Farley, a legend, and it was so great being able to grow up and just watch him perform. I hope, younger people feel the same way about him like I do.
I bet they do.
I hope so. What do you think about Matt Foley?
Love Matt Foley. Love it.
All right.
I mean, it's one of the funniest sketches ever.
One of them, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe not as funny as Massive Head Wound Harry, but anyway.
Oh my God, Massive Head Wound Harry is not funny at all.
All right. Well, how about you dive into your next choice?
Okay,
It's funny.
My next choice that I think is funny is another classic, one of the best sketches on SNL, and that is Dick in a Box. This was during the period when Justin Timberlake was on the show quite a few times, and Justin Timberlake is actually kind of funny. And so, and he's willing to put himself in, like, ridiculous situations. Like, he was a big chicken, like, he had a big chicken outfit on and one. Anyway, In this one, he and Andrew,
Oh, the
Andy Samberg.
Andy Samberg, yeah.
He and Andy Samberg are two very like 80s or early 90s R&B kind of characters who have ridiculous suits on with lots of pleats involved in the suits and facial hair. They both have goatees, I think. And anyway, they look ridiculous and they sing a song. They're a duo, right? And so it opens with Justin Timberlake having a dinner with his Valentine. And he's like, hey, baby.
That's Andy Samberg, actually.
No.
Yep.
Oh, it is. You're right. Okay. Andy Samberg.
We'll have that on replay a lot now.
Seriously. You need it because it only happens once in a while, so you need to have it on tape so you can listen, you can hear it more often.
Yeah, here, you're right, and then dun, da, da, da. Go ahead.
Anyway, so Andy Samberg, with his lady and Maya Rudolph, who did a great job not laughing somehow, as Andy Samberg romances her with the song, right? Like, hey, lady, I know you've been tired lately. I'm gonna, just the whole thing, right? It's kind of spoken talk singing. And he says, I'm gonna give you a present. And it's not going to be the things you think it would be. It's going to be my dick in a box. And then the whole rest of the song is about, it's my dick in a box. It's my dick in a box. Which is absolutely hilarious. What did you think of Dick in a Box?
It was humorous.
Was it?
Yes. I think part of it, and this is another sketch that they talked about on that Saturday Night Live documentary. I think part of the appreciation of it, I think, does come if you were a fan of the early '90s stuff, like Color Me Bad, the R&B group, because they were clearly inspired by that, among others. Like, I think if you were more into that, if I was more into that kind of music, maybe I would have enjoyed it a little more. Kind of like, how, like, I could watch something like Spinal Tap, for instance, and completely die laughing because that's the kind of music I grew up on and stuff like that. But, like, the Dick in the Box is like, hey, it's a dick in a box. Thumbs up.
I mean, maybe I was more exposed to that early 90s R&B than you were.
Did you have a Color Me Bad poster on your wall?
Oh, God, no. They weren't at all my favorite. It wasn't my favorite kind of music. But
they weren't going to sex you up.
I mean, I knew all those songs, but I did not have a poster of anybody but Bob Dylan on my wall. I don't even think I had a poster of Bob Dylan, so.
All right.
No posters.
Okay. Anyway, again, it was funny. But would I call it my absolute favorite of all time now?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But as long as you thought it was funny.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
All right. How about I go on to my next one?
Yes, please do.
All right. The last time we talked about Eddie Murphy here. This sketch, when I first saw it, it was a short film that he did for the show that is going to go, like, if this I probably would say would probably be number one on my list of all-time funniest SNL sketches, and it's White Like Me.
Wow.
You ever see that one?
Yeah.
It's presented as a documentary to where he talks about getting like white makeup on and then going out into the world as a white man. I love how at the beginning, he talked about watching Hours of Dynasty, and then, he was talking to another black guy in the sketch and goes, oh, look at, they're like holding their butts really tight when they walk. And they, have that conversation. But then, once he is the white guy, he goes out into the world. He goes into like a newspaper shop, which I'm sure they have. I mean, they had them in New York at that time, anyway, but he grabs a newspaper, tries to pay for it. And the cashier, who's a white guy, was like, what are you doing? Take it. just take it. He gave him his money back, gave him the paper, and he walked out. Eddie Murphy, as the white man got on the bus, and it was one black guy on the bus, but as soon as the black guy got off the bus, all of a sudden jazz music starts playing, and there's a woman who takes her jacket off, and turns out she's a waitress and starts handing out drinks, and it sits on Eddie Murphy's lap on the city bus, because that's what happens to us white people, right?
Yep.
And then he goes to a bank and tries to take out a loan, and the loan officer at the bank, the first one that he meets, is a black guy, and is like, "You don't have any collateral, you don't even have any ID, I'm not giving you any money, Mr. White." Which was his name. And then all of a sudden a white bank officer comes in and goes, "Oh, you should take your break right now." The black bank officer walks off. The white bank officer turns to Eddie Murphy as Mr. White and pulls out a cash box from the desk and goes, "Oh, how much do you need? Here, take it. And the whole end of the whole film is Eddie Murphy saying, essentially, "While we can't cure racism, I do have lots of makeup. And I do have lots of friends." So essentially, all of his friends were going to dress up as white people and go out into the world. And one of those was actually a young Charlie Murphy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. I love Charlie Murphy.
Yeah, but White Like Me, it is one of those sketches that is able to tackle something as serious as racism, but does it in just an absolutely honest, brutal, funny way. Honest way, and done in a positive way. It's like it's just amazing. One of the best.
I agree. I love that skit as well. And I remember, being fascinated by it as a kid, because it had never occurred to me that people's experiences of the world might be different based on what they looked like.
Yep. So White Like Me, one of the best ever made. But how about you dive into your last choice here?
My last choice is Black Jeopardy. Dun dun dun. Familiar with Black Jeopardy?
Familiar with it, but I never saw it.
You never saw any of the episodes of Black Jeopardy?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's one with Chadwick Boseman playing T'Challa.
You remembered.
Yeah. T'Challa. But the one that I think is the most famous and the one that is the most funny is the one that Tom Hanks is on, where he plays a Trump supporting country bumpkin. So the setup for Black Jeopardy is that there are always two black contestants and one contestant that is different in some way. Usually they're white. And then all the questions are supposedly related to things that black people are knowledgeable about, talk about, that white people just have no clue about. And so the questions are about those topics, and the white people can never get any question right because they have no idea what's up with black culture. So it's funny to see the white people struggle to answer the questions. But Tom Hanks, when he came on, he played this Trump supporter who answered every question correctly. And so it was like everybody was really surprised, and it was like really weird and funny that he was able to win the Black Jeopardy contest. Very funny.
All right. I mean, I think we have kind of talked about it in the past in some broad strokes about how there is a lot of black culture that, us as white people, like I know I'm just discovering a lot myself that I feel should have been known, in terms of like entertainment, music or, film or stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
Because, like I mentioned about Tyler Perry before, like Tyler Perry was like a billionaire before white people really knew about him.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, everything he had put out. So it's definitely, it sounds like a sketch based on reality in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is probably one reason that I liked it. I like when they have like political stuff.
Yep. brutally honest, like the white like me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right. How about I dive into my last one?
Yeah, let's hear about it.
All right. One of the funny parts about SNL, and you usually see these right after the monologue from the host, are the commercial parodies.
Yes, so funny.
Like a colon blow, that was a good one. The change bank, that was a fun one too. To where like if you come in with a 20, we'll give you 2 10s, or a 10 and 2 5s, or a 10 and 5 and 5 1s. And I mean, that was essentially the commercial.
Right, right.
As hell.
Do you remember the commercial for the Adobe, the car that was made out of clay?
No.
Hey, hey, it's Adobe, the little car that's made out of clay. And so if you ran into something, you just get out and fix it because it's just clay.
Well, okay.
It was very funny.
Yeah. One I found absolutely hilarious starred Chris Farley and Adam Sandler.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two guys. It opens up like you see an exterior of an old ratty looking house. They're knocking on an old fashioned door knocker, and then they're in the house. Chris Farley turns to Adam Sandler, goes, "This is the place? It's a dump." And Adam Sandler is like, "Wait till you get to the pool." They go out. The pool's ratty, covered in moss. It has no water in it. But then Adam Sandler turns on the water, and magically it changes. And then up out of the water come 5 muscled up guys. And and one of them says, "You boys looking to get wet?" And you find out it's a commercial for a beer called Schmitt's Gay.
Schmitt's Gay.
Yeah, and Phil Hartman did the voiceover, like, "If you got a big thirst and you're gay, try Schmitt's Gay." And Phil Hartman was a legend. But what I absolutely love about the sketch, too, it's like, looking on it, it's like, I don't think anybody really mistook Adam Sandler and Chris Farley for gay guys in that sketch, but they also didn't play it as two-dimensional, if that makes sense. I feel it's one of those sketches that if you were gay, you could watch this and have a good laugh, because it's not making fun of gay people, it's making fun of beer commercials in general, because mostly beer commercials are shot with the male gaze. Normally, it would be women popping out of the water holding beer and, "Come get yourself a bush," and open it up and spills all over. Anyway.
Right, yeah.
So what do you think about Schmitt's Gay?
I loved it. I think Schmitt's Gay is really funny.
Yes. Probably one of the best commercial parodies they've done on the show.
Probably.
Yep. Any other thoughts on Saturday Night Live?
Love it. Enjoyed that documentary. I don't think I watched the whole thing because it's quite long.
Well, the music documentary is on Peacock right now, directed by Questlove, the same guy who directed the documentary Summer of Love. He's a drummer for the Roots. The Roots are also the house band for The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
Yep.
And if you watch that music documentary for anything, watch it for like the opening sequence, because he mix and matches a bunch of musical guests over the multiple years that show has been on the air, and it has this great music mashup.
It's so good. The mashup at the beginning is so good.
Yeah.
It's totally worth just like looking up that and watching the beginning of it.
Yeah, I believe that is actually on. They did have that opening. It should be on YouTube as well. So future Tim, if you find that, put it in the show description link. But anyway, how about we kick it to one of our friends in the podcasting world?
That sounds great.
All right. Hang tight, everybody. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Dawn Brody, a comedian with a history degree and the host of the podcast HILF. History I'd Like to Fuck. Each episode, I am joined by a new guest who has brought me a subject from history that they want to know more about. Then I hit the books, I dig deep in the annals, and stimulate. We've covered Frankenstein, Houdini, Joan of Arc, Pompeii, the Salem witch trials, right? Join us and find out for yourself that history is a party and everybody's coming.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Before we wrap things up this week, as we record this, we are a day past the Grammy ceremony for 2025.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we wanted to talk about a couple of things here. Before we talk about the album wins that, we're both happy for, there's one thing that really caught your eye.
Well, I love the red carpet and I love seeing what everybody's wearing. I don't like watching red carpet shows. Like, that's annoying and lame. Like, they act like it's news that somebody's walking down a carpet, like, whatever. But I do like seeing what everybody's wearing just for fashion purposes. So, when I saw Jaden Smith picture in U.S. News or Us magazine. He was all in black tux, and a castle about 2 feet by 2 feet castle on top of his head with the moat area, the door to the castle was his face. It was so weird. And I decided that's my favorite outfit.
Imagine being the person that has to sit behind him.
Well, yeah.
I'd be pissed. I'm way too cynical that even if I were that famous to the point of where I would be on a red carpet, I would not be stupid enough to wear something like that on my head. I mean, like, maybe, just maybe, because a lot of times, these people, when they do walk down the red aisle, the red carpet and all that stuff, they are actually being essentially endorsed by, like the famous like jewelers or the famous people that make the clothes, like a Vera Wang type.
Right.
It's more of an advertisement, so they're getting money. And if you're getting money for it, then yeah, if I was getting paid a decent amount of money to wear a castle on my head, maybe I would at that point. But again, I would want to make sure I was in the back row, because being 6'5" and then wearing a 2-foot castle on my head would be a little awkward for anybody behind.
Well, Jaden is very short.
So
doesn't have that problem.
He doesn't get the Fresh Prince height.
No.
Oh, man. Celebrities' kids are weird.
Very weird.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there were two winners that we did want to talk about here. Now, kind of like the Oscars, you have the 2025 Oscars, but they're essentially movies that came out the year before in 2024. So that's kind of what happened here with the Grammys. And two winners were one, the Beatles. They won for Now and Then.
Wow. Isn't that cool?
Yep.
Their last single
ever, and they were rewarded with it, and I think rightfully so, because one reason I would give it to them was how technology was able to give us this song.
Mm-hmm.
That Peter Jackson and his team coming up with the software that was able to separate Lennon's voice from the piano, the thing that prevented this from being a song on the third Beatles anthology album.
Mm-hmm.
So for that alone, I would give it to them, because think of the opportunities in the future you could have for more stuff like this, if it's done in a respectful way, not like, volume 14 of us redoing every single Dead Person song.
Right.
So there is that. The other big winner, and I believe this also did win for Album of the Year, was one Beyonce for Cowboy Carter.
That's right. It won both Album of the Year and Best Country Album of the Year. And she's the first Black woman to win in that category.
Amazing and just pathetic and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because as this album showed, the big reason why she wanted to do this album was to essentially give voice to a lot of the Black voices that have been in country music in the past. One such voice, she picked a song by a singer by the name of Linda Martell. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Nope.
She was the first commercially successful Black female artist in country music and the first to play the Grand Ole Opry.
Wow.
I mean, you growing up in Tennessee, not knowing of her, shows that is a problem.
And when was this? What era?
Well, she's 83 right now, so she's still alive. The years she was active was 62 to 2011.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, basically 69 to 74 was her big era of success.
I see.
But again, I never heard of her. And you, being a lot more familiar with country music than I am, have not heard of her. That's why Beyonce did this, and thank God she did, because like the artists that she covered, even Paul McCartney with the Beatles with her cover of Blackbird, who didn't need the help, she got a lot of people listening to those older artists. I mean, because I remember an article after this album came out that talked about how Linda Martell, Dolly Parton, how Willie Nelson's music was being listened to like 10, 20, 100-fold. Because of this album. People were discovering these songs and were like, oh, hey, this person did it. I'm going to start listening to them. And for that alone, she deserved that honor. It's like I worked in a music store in my 20s, and that was when Destiny's Child put out the album with the Say My Name album, and it was constantly played at where I worked, and I hated it, and I hated her for the longest time. But this album right here, like, she did an amazing thing. It's a great album, but it's also just great. It's music history on a single album. Like, if you are really truly supportive of an America that is free for everybody, this is something you listen to, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So anyway, I was definitely happy about both of those wins. The rest of the artists who won, I'm sure I knew some of them, but like Chapel Roan, like we've talked about her on the show before. But if you played me one of her songs, I would not know.
No idea.
Yeah,
she won Best New Artist.
Okay,
Chapel Roan did.
Good for her.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan, great. Billie Eilish, I do dig one song from Billie Eilish.
Yeah, which one?
It's the song "Bad Guy." I just love that do 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 that bit.
That riff, you like that?
I do. I've heard some of her other songs and the vocals don't always work for me, but like her low-key soft delivery kind of works in this in a fun way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I like that song. I like one Billie Eilish song.
Well, you haven't listened to every Billie Eilish song, so you might like others.
I might like 2.
Yeah.
You never know.
3 or 4.
Or 5. I may have a list. But anything else you wanted to talk about the Grammys?
Nope.
What a wonderful grammatical line, I was making fun of that woman on Reddit in a few episodes back. And
that's right.
Let me now,
That's right.
I'm going to look in a reversifying glass. All right. Each Monday, we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.